Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today is going to be the 5 position tier list for patch 7.37e, and let's just start off with the best hero in the patch as a 5 position, and that is Lich. This is far and away the best hero. I kind of would almost put this hero at the top by itself, but we'll see. Obviously Ogre you saw there is another one, but this hero is just really, really good in pretty much every way. I mean, the passive is great. You don't have to get mana regen at all. You just honestly feel like you're full mana all the time from the creeps dying in the lane, and even like the camps in the side dying and all that kind of stuff, so that's kind of insane. This Frost Shield is literally OP. Literally, you just stick it on yourself or an ally, especially an ally from the, you're sitting in the back of the fight, they get gone on, you just stick this on an enemy. You might as well have like a save that is as good as like Disruption or something, because you literally stick this. It's probably even better because this slows and they can't die. They literally take 0 damage. It's absurd how good this is right now. And it's good in lane because you can like chase people down. You take no damage if they try to go on you. Your core takes no damage if they try to go on you in lane. It's absurd. This does ridiculous damage, slows, like great in lane to spam, and because you have infinite mana, it feels like, it's just so good. The Fear is obviously just a good stun, all that kind of stuff, but really then you combo this later in the game with your Shard and your ultimate, and then the Sinister Gaze, you can literally solo kill every hero in the game. Now that's obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, like sure, like a Storm Spirit you're not going to kill, or other things like that, or when heroes have BKB, sure. But if someone doesn't have BKB, or they don't have mobility, don't have some way to get out of that slow, and they don't have like a Force Staff or something, or their hero, there's no support there to save them, you will solo kill cores. You will solo kill the carry, you will solo kill the mid or the offlane, anyone in the game if you can get your combo off on them. And then the fact that you have this like Chain Frost lingering means that any hero, even if they split up, you're disrupting the team fight, and then whoever this lands on at the end has to stay out of the team fight for a little bit longer. It's just like super annoying. It's not like they can just split up and then immediately re-engage. So that is an added benefit as well. All those things just add up to this hero being insane and super OP. I think it's really just comes down to infinite mana in lane, Frost Shield being completely broken, and then the ultimate Shard spell combo with the Fear, just like one-shotting people and doing crazy damage in the team fights. And then we have Ogre. This is kind of a weird hero. So basically, this is more of like the core Ogre. This one is weird because level 1, you have 0 abilities. So you just go into the lane, you just have nothing. But then the real thing that makes this hero's laning stage insane is that level 2, you now have 3 abilities. So you basically have 1 point of Fire Blast and 2 in Ignite at level 2. And this is when, if you can survive that like level 1, which is usually fairly easy to survive, you're pretty tanky, you can like right click people and stuff. You just want to secure your level 2. And then you're a beast. Like, level 2 Ignite does infinity damage, it feels like, especially if there's squishy supports or even a squishy offlaner on the enemy team. And then you can just run them down. You're basically the best level 2 hero in the game. So you secure your laning stage to an insane degree. And then after the laning stage, it's really straightforward and simple in this hero. Very tanky, annoying to deal with, and then you can just buy Midas and get ridiculous with this Bloodlust. Great on every right-click hero, and it feels like there's so many right-click heroes. You have right-click heroes carry, which is obvious, but then mid, there's a million right-click heroes. Off lane, we have like, I feel like every hero's a right-click hero these days. So this is just ridiculous. And then now your Shard is also very, very good. This is maybe not as good as like, Frost Shield or anything like that, but this is a great, great Shard. So when you combine this with infinity damage here, great laning stage, good stuns, great attack speed. It's a simple hero, easy to play, and also very, very good overall. I think the numbers on the hero are just really good. I think the biggest thing is just that the attack speed is great for every hero. The Shard is very good. And then even Ignite later on into the game, even 20, 25 minutes, it feels like it does so much damage. It's very annoying to deal with if you don't have a Purge. So that's honestly later in the game why the hero is so good. So those are the 2 best supports right now, far and away. And then A tier, these are all pretty decent supports. So we have Shadow Shaman, pretty decent support. I think it's good as 4 and as 5. I think it was in the A tier at the 4 too. I think it can have a lot of items, but it doesn't need the items. The Cluster Cluck, again, is super annoying to deal with. Otherwise, it does the same things that the Shadow Shaman has always done. Very good pushing, good stuns, but can get caught out and is very squishy in the same way that it always has been. I think I should put Lion. I'm just going to adjust this, put Lion over here. It's the same kind of thing. Lion just probably needs more items. That's why it's not S tier, and it was really good as a 4 position because you want that blink and you want your items, where you do want to farm for a blink at least as a 5 position. If you don't go that, it feels kind of bad. That's why it's not as good, but it is still great. The mana drain, the giving mana to your allies, the harassment, and even the ultimate can be very, very good. Then Ringmaster doesn't really feel like he needs to buy any items, and his kit is just good overall. Like, throughout the entire game with levels. And so that's really why this hero is more of a 5, because like what item does this hero really need to buy? I mean, you're just going to buy like 4 staff and the typical 5 position items, and you're not really buying a blink because you want to sit in the back and save people. And so that's really the long and short of the hero, just better as a 5 overall. That's why I think it was probably B tier as a 4 position, but it's A tier as a 5. And just like I said in the 4 position video, it's just kind of like your average here. Has a good save, has some good harass, has a decent stun, decent ultimate, not the best at anything, but just good at everything almost. Then we have Shadow Demon. Again, I think it's an A tier 4 and 5. You can get items, and that can be really good with like having a break and stuff, but you also don't necessarily need items in the 5 position. You can just get your typical support items and be very good with that. Very good with the save, with the disruption, very good offensively with your ultimate and stuff like that, but also good defensively with the purge and everything. And then spamming out. You can also do a lot of damage with the hero. You don't want to underestimate how much damage this hero can actually do. Now, it's not a hero that really is picked a lot in pubs. I think it's kind of a specialist hero. It also relies a lot on coordinating with your team, so that can be a little bit of an issue. But if you know how to play it and you're good with it, you can honestly stomp. Then we have Clockwork, probably the only decent like melee running in there and actually being able to be a 5 while being like this melee hero. Like, Earthshaker and Tusk and some of these other heroes, they're not great. Even like Pudge, they're not very good as a 5 position. You want a ranged 5. That's not necessarily always the case. Like if you do have a ranged carry, you can pair a melee 5 with that. But a lot of times you're going to have a melee carry, and even so, it'd be better to have 2 ranged heroes anyway. But Clockwork is the exception because you like to run people down, because your Cogs is a good isolation tool and all this kind of stuff. It functions almost like a ranged carry in a way where people just can't, like they have to run away from you. So even if you're far away from the enemy support, they can't let you get close to them, because if they do, they're just going to take infinity harass and probably die. So it almost functions in that way where, unlike other heroes, you can't get as close to Clockwork as maybe you can get to other melee heroes. Like, it's not a big deal if you walk up to Earthshaker or you click Earthshaker a bunch and then he walks up to you and hits you. It's like, I don't really care about that as much. I can kind of afford to do that. I don't want to, man fight the Earthshaker necessarily melee range, but you can at least afford that. You can't afford that with Clockwork because, you need to keep that distance with him just like he's a ranged hero almost. Then the next 3 we have are basically all healing supports. So they don't really need any items. Pugna, Abaddon, Io, they need basically nothing. And then they just save and heal. And that's really what they do. Honestly, I think Abaddon is the best for most pubs. I mean, Pugna is very good. Io is a specialist kind of hero. But Abaddon just feels absolutely insane. Like, when you have this hero and you have a good Abaddon player on your team, it feels like you can't die. The shield is ridiculous. The purge is ridiculous. The heal is absurd. And then if you do get items on the hero, like you get an Ags, that Ags is so good. It will literally save anyone on the team. If you just pop ult and you're standing next to the hero that they're trying to kill, they will not die. It's impossible. They actually will not die, because then you're healing them for infinity, and you're also healing them with your normal spell, and you're shielding them. They literally won't die, and that is just absurd. So if you do get to that point, yeah, this hero honestly feels broken. And having a good Abaddon player that sits behind the enemy is just so annoying, because it feels like you can't do anything on the map. And then lastly, this is the specialist hero that is Bounty Hunter, which was very good as a 4 position. You do kind of need your items. It is a little bit of a grief because you are a melee 5 position when you pick this as a 5 position, but it is so good that it is viable. Like, you can run people down, you can harass in lane, you are effective, and then if you do get off to a good start and you get these track kills and you are involved, it is viable. It's like matchup dependent. Obviously, you're picking first as a support, but you don't want to pick this hero as a 5 and then have like another 5 position-ish kind of hero. Or maybe you kind of want someone in the 4 position role that isn't like the carry. You don't want to pick Bounty Hunter and then have like a Muerta 4. That's kind of grief. Unless you have like a ton of frontline and stuns in your mid and your off lane, like they pick correctly. It's just like, sure, if you have Bounty Hunter 5 and then you have like, I don't know, even Lion 4, that's a little bit better, or like Lich or something else that they pick, that feels way better. And maybe even swap lanes, to be honest. But Bounty Hunter's okay. It's just only here because it's so good in general that it's able to be picked and it's viable. Then B tier, we have the normal supports that are just decent right now. This is a great pub stomping hero. Warlock has been for a bit. He's been nerfed a couple times because he was so OP. I think he's just decent now. You can definitely pick him. He's kind of obviously a late game beast, has a decent laning stage. Mid game is a little bit awkward, but still does all the same things. It just sucks that he doesn't have a reliable stun. That's always going to be his weakness. Disruptor, a little bit awkward as well. Is very good for the same reason Disruptor has always been good. The wall is terrible, obviously, but no one picks that ever. But, the chasing people down is great. Sending people back to base with their TP is great. Your ultimate, if you do eventually get to your ags, is great. I think there's just that weird middle point where people get BKBs and you don't have your ags that can feel like you do nothing, and that can be the point where you lose the game. But if you stomp early and then later in the game you get your ags, you will own at either of those times. Crystal Maiden, overall, a decent support, just middle of the road. If you want like a decent support that's just good in a lot of different situations, but not the best, Crystal Maiden is the way to go. You provide your team with mana and everything. That's great. You have a decent laning stage because you are very squishy, but then eventually you can get to your BKB timing and you have a shard that is pretty good and you have an Ags that's okay. And you eventually get to the point where it's very hard to bring you down if you have like BKB and Glimmer Cape. Like you can ult and just honestly do infinity damage in team fights. So that can be pretty good. Again, but because it is so squishy, you will just get blown up by a lot of heroes. Like, you know, if there's a PA in the game or a Spectre in the game or any kind of these carries that just jump on you, even like a Storm Spirit, any kind of mid that is mobile, you have to be so careful because you will die in like 2 spells. Snapfire, good as a support because you don't necessarily need items and it's harder to transition into, you know, that carry build with this hero unlike some other supports. So you have a decent laning stage. You can farm pretty well if you are able to, and you can get a good amount of like support items like Force Staff, Glimmer, and then you can even get like Pipe, you can get Solar Crest, all that kind of stuff because you do have good farm. And then, you know, it's not that big of a deal for your 5-position ultimate to fall off and your magic damage to fall off because that's not really what you're looking for from your 5-position for the most part. And then Bane can be very annoying hero, an annoying hero to deal with, can have a very good laning stage against certain matchups. But then sometimes you can just absolutely feel like you're feeding and you're doing nothing, especially because you have to sit there and channel your ultimate. But then sometimes if there's like one hero on the enemy team you have to kill, it's almost like a Doom in that way where you just pick that one guy and they die. So it can be good in a lot of different matchups. I think if you're a Bane like specialist and you really know how to position yourself on the hero and really know how to play the hero, you can like own games with it. It just can feel really awkward and very squishy like a Crystal Maiden or something like that. Then Winter Wyvern, just like a worse version of this like save and healing support that you want from one of these guys, because, you know, you save your allies with your heal, and then you also can just like distract the enemy with this big disrupting teamfight ultimate. It just, you'd rather have these guys because this is like kind of high cooldown. The ultimate is more of a bigger one that you can grief your team in some ways. So that's why it's not as good. And then same thing with Oracle, just not as good as these other heroes because it doesn't provide as much, but is still very good. It's basically like the discount Abaddon. Like having a good Oracle in the enemy team feels absolutely absurd because you can't do any magic damage. They just save anybody you go on. It just feels really hard to play against a good Oracle player. Kind of same thing with Dazzle. It's just a little bit worse than these other heroes, maybe even a little bit worse than Oracle in some way. I mean, Dazzle, you have more offensive potential at times, especially as a 5-position to chase people down in lane. But especially against Axe specifically, obviously, this hero is not very good. And Axe is very popular, especially in pubs. Like, of all the tier list heroes that I usually put in here, some of them, like Io, you never see in pubs, for instance. Axe you see in, like, every pub. Like, it's picked, like, every single game. So that's why Dazzle just not as good. Like, if you have a Dazzle and then the enemy picks Axe, it's like you're crying. And then Omni Knight's up here as a heal support. I don't know. I was going to put it, I might even like shift it now because like when I look at the win rate and the pick rate on Dota 2 Pro Tracker and stuff, it says it's good. I never see this hero. I think it's kind of bad. It's not picked a lot, so I don't know. I think that's like a fake win rate and it actually deserves to be down here. I don't know. That's just kind of my gut reaction because it's like, I don't know. Is Omni really that good at saving people and like being a support right now? I don't know. Sometimes, but I don't feel like it. So I made the executive decision to say no Omni, you're actually going down here. Then we have kind of tankier frontline guys. Undying is one that actually works as a 5-position, but is not the best right now. You'd rather have something else probably on your team. It's just kind of a little bit awkward. These like, you know, Tree is also really bad right now. These like 5 positions that just run in and own the lane aren't that great. Elder Titan, again, another one of those that's just like very weird. I feel like you never see this hero other than in pros, and it's like okay right now, but not the best. You're probably not going to be playing it, and you're probably not going to see it, but this is just where the win rate and pick rate says it should be. That's pretty much it. Enchantress, you can play this hero as kind of like a carry from the 5-position. That's really what you're doing. Your heal is obviously really good. In certain matchups where they don't have much break or they don't have good attack speed, you can honestly own. Or if they don't have a ton of magic damage to blow you up, that's really good. You can buy like Pipe if you want, but you're really going to be buying a lot of right-click items. So sometimes that can be grief, sometimes it can be great, depending on what your team has and what the matchups are. Pudge, I would say, actually, for once, is not a complete grief 5-position. For the most part, I've always said Pudge is a grief 5. I hate this hero as a 5, but now, because it does have a save from the shard, and because you do insane damage if you do hook people out in the lane, this hero actually is viable, I think, as a 5-position. And you can kind of transition into more of a core, And I think just the hook is so good in general at getting people out of position these days, even like high grounding or defending high ground, that it just makes the hero annoying to play against. It's not maybe as annoying as a bounty or a Nyx, like it doesn't change the dynamic of the game that much to that extent, but it is significant to the point that it makes everything annoying, and you actually are pretty tanky, even as a support when you don't get a ton of items, as long as you're like getting kills in general. Then Phoenix, more of a specialist hero, okay as a 5, but again, feels weird. Like if you it's kind of like a bounty hunter in this way, that if you have this hero as your 5, but you don't have any kind of like reliable stun or anything else like frontline or anything else on the 4 position, that can feel really bad. So it can sometimes feel like a complete grief to have this as a 5, but sometimes it can feel really good. And that's the same thing with Tinker too. You don't have any reliable stun, but you have an okay laning phase, and you can support your team in all these weird other ways with like the shield and with the heal and stuff like that. But if you, again, don't have any kind of reliable 4 position to stun or to frontline or do anything like that, you can kind of grief the game with this Tinker pick. That's why it's B tier, not like A tier. Then at the top of C tier, we have Witch Doctor. And this hero, even though the win rate is not very good overall in high level pubs, and that's why I'm putting it down here, it's not getting picked a bunch. I actually think overall for like any pub below like 5k, 4k, whatever, this hero owns the game, and you can carry the game with this hero, and it provides a lot of what you want. Like it's a good laning stage hero. It has a stun, like it has some of those things, but then the ultimate is insane. The damage with the Maledict is ridiculous. And so if you want to like spam a hero that I think is always going to be viable, no matter if it's C tier or D tier, let's say, in high level pubs, I think this hero is still like A or S tier in like 1k MMR. You know what I mean? So if you are looking for a support to play that you can solo carry the game with, Witch Doctor is that hero, almost regardless of what happens in the patch. Then Dark Willow, more of a 4. You kind of want items, but you can still play a 5 and be annoying with your harassment, with your stun, and with your brambles and all that kind of stuff. But it just feels like it falls off then after, if it doesn't get items, and then you're kind of like not really doing anything. You're just like putting a bunch of stuff out there, a bunch of brambles, and it's like, okay, well now people have BKB, so what are you doing? And that's why it's just not as good. I'd rather have something else. Jakiro is just okay. You'd rather have almost any other support as a 5 position, but you're still ranged. You can harass decently. I mean, you do 2 spells, like Breathe Fires or whatever, and then you have 0 mana. I think that's the biggest problem with the hero. Your D-warding is good. Once you do get some levels, you do harass, and you're very, very annoying. But again, easily purged, and a lot of people are buying Manta or Purges these days. There's a lot of these save heroes that are just annoying to deal with this hero. And again, it's kind of like these other heroes where if you can get to your Ags, that's insane, and you can do insane damage. Like if you get items, that's ridiculous, but there is like a midpoint where you don't have these items, people have BKBs, people have Mantas, and it's like, okay, what is Magic Hero really doing? You know what I mean? And then Silencer are good in certain matchups. If you can afford to right-click people in the lane especially, you can own games, or own the lane at least, and then if the Silence is really, really good against some heroes, it can be a very good hero in the matchups. Obviously, you're going to pick this first, so you don't always know that going in, but sometimes it can feel like a Silence bot, which sucks. And sometimes it can feel like you just literally feed to any hero anytime you show ever. And so that's why it's in the C tier, but there are those rare games where the Silencer just feels overwhelmingly insane. Then AA is very good against, Alchemist, a lot of these regen heroes, that kind of thing. But other than that, it just feels kind of bad in lane, kind of weak. The harassment's fine, but it's like a little bit of whatever. And then after that, yeah, you're ulting people, but like your other spells feel so bad. Like it's just hard to really land them or be effective with them. Like you have a right click one, what is that doing? You kind of give vision a little bit and slow people, but whatever. And then your stun is so unreliable. It's really just an ult bot. And then that's the same thing with Silencer. Like if you just become this anti-regen ult bot with your shard that stuns people, like that can be fine, but that feels bad a lot of times. We already talked about Omni, not great as like one of these save supports. Probably just rather have any of these other ones. And then Tusk, more of a melee hero that feels a little bit awkward, kind of like Marcy in this way. Like you can get away with it if you have a ranged carry, but you're obviously going to be picking first, so you don't know that. So you can get away with it, like I said, but I'd rather you pick a Pudge, to be honest. I mean, Undying, another one of these heroes like Clockwork or whatever. If you're going to pick, especially obviously Ogre, if you're going to pick one of these like aggressive, tanky melee 5s. It's just these 2 heroes are not as good. And then later in the game, you're going to be relying on Marcy to transition to this carry from the 5. That's a little bit awkward. If you're going to do that, pick like Enchantress, you know what I mean? And then Tusk is just like, you're not really going to be a carry from the 5. You have more utility than some of these other heroes, but it can just be pretty bad to have this melee 5 running around and feeling like it's doing nothing. Then Hoodwink and Zeus. I would just include them in here because they do offer some reliability. In fact, I'm going to take Zeus off the list. I put it on there because the win rate and the pick rate is not like the worst in high level, like on Dota 2 Pro Tracker, but I don't know. I feel like that's not good enough to put it here on the C tier. I think I'm just going to remove it because I feel like that's like Giga Grief, to be honest. And even Hoodwink to some extent is a grief. At least you have a stun, but people you know are just going to be picking this as a 5 and then going carry items, and that just feels bad. Then Chen. This hero's like dead. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're a good Chen player, maybe you can pick it, but it has like all these infinity weird facets. Nobody even knows which one's the best one to go. I don't know. It's just a weird, awkward hero. And then Veno is here C tier because, I mean, I guess maybe you would jungle more as the 4 position, so I maybe should have put it there. I did mention it. And then Veno, I guess, it's more of a 5, so you actually would want to play it in a 5 position as like a real hero. But if you were going to pick Veno, I'd probably just jungle, to be honest. So that's why I was like, don't pick Veno. That's why I didn't include it in the 4 position. So it's kind of weird. I just hate the hero. I think it's terrible. Like, even when it's a good patch for the hero, it feels like it does nothing. I mean, what? Okay, great. You got First Blood because you have a good Q, and then like you spit on people later and you give some ward vision. It's like, I don't know. I don't really feel like that effectiveness is going to be that good. Then lastly, we have D tier for viable heroes. Naga is still okay, but I think especially in pubs, it's not good. Like, this is more of a, like, just a disruption hero to how Dota works, and it's like a pro Dota thing where it just is very annoying to deal with the song and with the reel in and all that kind of stuff, but it's really not a good pub hero, I think, overall. Like, I don't think you're going to do what you want to do on this hero, and it takes a lot of team coordination and stuff. Then Venge, you just need an Ags. I mean, just straight up, you need an Ags. Also, like, heroes like Faceless Void, which this hero's good against as a 5, he's terrible right now, so it just doesn't feel like it does much. If you can get your items, it can be good, kind of like these other heroes right in C tier, but just even worse than that. Bat Rider feels bad as a 5, very awkward hero right now. Still kind of pickable as support, but whatever. Grimstroke just feels really bad. What does this hero even do? Nobody knows. I think it just kind of like stuns people, I guess, and clears through waves, and then the ult is like fine. Maybe if you have a Doom on your team, maybe if you have a Necro on your team, you know, maybe if you can get to your Dark Portrait, which again, that's like kind of insane to think of for a 5. Like, you need Ags, like that's just weird. Tree, like, why are you picking this hero? Undying is better right now, to be honest, but even any of these other heroes, like, just pick Ogre, to be honest, or even like a save heal support. Like, okay, you're going to be invis, you maybe get an Ags. Again, you need to rush that to get the eyes in the forest, but otherwise, like, yeah, your ult's good, I guess, but it just feels really bad right now. Mainly, I think, because the laning stage isn't as dominant as it once was. Gyro, I think I'm just going to remove this from the 5, kind of like I did Zeus. Don't pick that. Even, like, Keep It Alight, I think it's only here because, like, you can pick it with Medusa, right? Like, and if you have stuns in a decent 4 position that, like, is a frontline stun kind of guy, maybe you can pick this, but, like, I don't know. Don't do it. It's kind of bad. But then F tier, this hero was all about magic damage. It's, like, kind of like the Zeus, so don't pick it. Maybe I'll just do this. I'll put Zeus in here. Whoops. I'll put Zeus in here, and I'll put Gyro in here, too. So we're doing some stuff on the fly here. Oops. Yeah, because, I don't know. These heroes, I just feel like these are all, like, magic damage heroes that don't offer very much, and so you don't want to pick them in the 5 position. Then Natures, that's just like griefing. Same thing with Wind Ranger, not really a 5 right now. Enigma, more of an off lane. Dawnbreaker, you could probably play as a 4, but not as a 5. I feel like rushing Ags, you just need items. Like, it doesn't do that much without items, to be honest. And then Rubik, I put this here because I hate this hero as a 5. Do not pick this as a 5. It feels like it griefs every single game. And like I talk about with some of these other heroes, like, oh, I'd rather have, you know, if I pick like Phoenix, I want to have another hero in like the 4 position that is kind of like a 5. Like, I don't know. Rubik just feels so bad as a 5 position. Every time you get it as a 5, it does nothing in lane. It's completely useless. And then later in the game, you're like, okay, great, you're stealing a spell, but you just do nothing. Like, and that's just my bias against Rubik. I just don't like it in general in pubs. Maybe you could get away with it, but even in like high MR, I don't think they pick Rubik 5 very much. And then lastly, again, we have our boy, and I'm not kidding, again, it's time to stop, Slark. I'm not going to go on a rant again, like I did last time for 5 minutes, but I am going to say this hero is good as a 5. 5 position might actually be, no, I'm just insane. 5 position, it might be better than 4. And 5 position, it might be better than offlane, because 4 is better than offlane even. I think 5 position might actually be the way that this hero might be played. Now, yes, you're not going to get as many items, but you don't even need items because, like, again, you have a save, you have a stun cancel, you deward everything, and you're going to be buying wards as a hero, as a 5 position especially. And I think the biggest thing too in the laning stage as well, with everything I already talked about in the last video with the Dark Reef and the regen and all that stuff, is now you have more room to work with as a 5 position to harass the enemy. So like it is more on the 4 position's job to kind of like seek you out and try to get the lane back in their favor by pulling and stuff. And you can really stop that as a support and really annoy them and really 1v1 them. And then because the lane is in a good position, default as like the 5 position with your carry, because the lane is in a default good position, you are adept, amazing at stopping pulls and stopping the wave from going back into the enemy's favor and stacking, pulling, and all that kind of stuff, because you have so much good ward control on the hero. And because you have so much distance between the enemy 4 position and their tower, you can harass them and do all the things I talked about in a really good way. And then obviously everything else into the rest of the game, you know, your shard, your dewarding, all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing, honestly. And again, more propaganda I'm spitting out there. I'm the Slark support advocate. I'm the Slark offlane advocate. Everyone just go start griefing all your games and start getting reported, and then come back and yell at me when you have a 6K behavior score because everyone hates you. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about that in the comments and all the other things in the video. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.